Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's talk with Latino professionals. And I'm trying to see if who we have on here, make sure our audience is here. So let's go ahead and get started. So welcome, everybody. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their Friday afternoon to meet with us on this very important topic for our careers. So I'll start with an introduction about myself. So I'm Refugio Ref Atilano. I'm the author of the Latino Leadership Playbook. I'm also a mentor and coach for Latinos and Latinas. I do a lot in the Latino spaces. If you see some of my LinkedIn posts, just really excited about the opportunity to be here. And I'm just going to caveat everything we say today, or at least I say today, from an AbbVie perspective. I do work for AbbVie as well as Data Santos. These are all our own views. This is not an AbbVie sponsored event. I'm very passionate about just overall leadership for Latinos and Latinas. And, one of the things that inspired me to create this, or to help create this talk today, is a couple things. One is, it was probably about a year and a half ago, I was at the We Are All Human um, annual Hispanic Leadership Summit, and Claudia did a great job as far as showing us the difference in pay between Latinas and their white male counterparts. And it was interesting because I think they handed out, Latinas get paid 54 cents on the dollar, and she handed out dollars that were 54 percent like of the size of an actual dollar. So these were small dollars. And putting in our hand, it was just like it was a powerful experience. And I just knew at that point in time we had to do something, whatever that something is from our perspective to help close that pay gap. And one of the ways we could do it, and understand there's multiple ways, but one of the ways is taking ownership of what we can do to do that. So, negotiating better, being more informed, having the right mindset as we negotiate our salary, and even as we want to ask for promotions. How do you go in confidently? How do you go in with the most information and the best information possible for great outcomes? And the great outcomes, obviously, are great positions and great pay. But what that means in the end is really better life for your family, even generations of in your family. Those things have real impact for our lives. So today's discussion is really about the impact of our lives, our families' lives, and really teeing us up for long-term success. And not just us, but everybody we touch. It's really critical that we share these insights with everybody we know, because everybody can benefit from discussions like these. The other thing, and I talk about it in the Latino Leadership Playbook, which I wrote, and we'll get to the contributors here in a second, these phenomenal panelists. Early in my career, when I was in my mid-20s, I remember one of the first jobs I got in corporate. I think I was offered $55,000, and I took it. I took the first thing they gave me. And I was so happy because I remember, it was more than my father ever made. It was more than my mother ever made. Like, that was my bar of success, which was a good bar, by the way. But, I still remember I was so happy until I found out that my white counterpart, who did the exact same work, the exact same job, was getting paid $40,000 more. And that just blew me away. And they were mad about their salary, by the way. And it blew me away. I'm like, huh. I was like, I missed something there, right? I missed an opportunity. And so those are the things that I want to hopefully help us all avoid in the future, is really knowing your market value, knowing the strategies of how to get the most of, for what you're worth, and to really tee you up for success. So with that, I'm extremely excited about the panel we have. We have Luz Perez, Dana Santos, Brenda Pineda, phenomenal leaders in this space. And I just couldn't be more happy to have them. Again, they all have their insights and stories, really insights-packed narratives in the Latino Leadership Playbook. So everything we discussed today is going to be in the playbook. So please pick one up. I have one here just to give a quick plug. But pick one up, and it has all types of insights you're going to need to navigate your career, not just for these topics, for many other leadership topics, especially for Latino and Latina leadership topics, to help us blast through those barriers. So with that, let's go ahead and get started, and then we'll get started with intros. And Luz, I'll go to you. Give us a quick intro about yourself.
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me here. This has been honestly one of the most impactful experiences that I have had, and being part of one, just the book and sharing some perspectives, and really a reflection on my own experience. So I want to make sure that that's also pretty clear, right? Like anything that I talked about and that I put as guidance in the book are things that I have lived through and I have personally encountered, right, throughout my professional career. But just again, in way of introduction, my name is Luz Perez, and I am a director, business partner for CDW, which is a technology company. And I essentially oversee a lot more of the enterprise level projects, which, honestly, dream job for any of you that would ever want to have that conversation. I'm pretty open. And I was again, contributing author to the Latino Leadership Playbook, a co-author to Latinas Rising Up in HR. And I have been in the field for over 17 years, dating myself a little bit. I know I started when I was like 5, but in any case, just glad to be here and to just continue to share some best practices.
Awesome. Dana?
Hi, everybody. I'm Dana Santos. And again, Ref, thank you so much for bringing me on here and for this opportunity. I'm really excited to talk about these topics today. Just like Luz, definitely a personal one. So I'll be sharing some personal stories as well. But I've been in human resources in a variety of different roles for the past 15 years. The early part of my career was really focused on building skills in different parts of the business. And then I moved to building leadership capabilities. I spent over 5 years in talent management. So identifying individuals across companies who have potential to be future leaders within the organization. And most recently, I've been working in organizational design. So setting up different parts of the business for success from a structure perspective, making sure they have the right interfaces with the different parts of the business. So I've been really fortunate to move around in human resources. And so you'll hear from some of my experiences today. But again, thank you and excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. Brenda?
Thank you, Refugio. I am happy to be here as well with the panel. I have been within the HR profession for about 20 years now. Currently Senior Director of HR for a flavor and fragrance company in New Jersey. And as Luz mentioned, I'm also co-author of Latinas Rising Up in HR and partnered with you on the great leadership playbook. So I'm happy to take part and share stories and advice on how we can help others in this space, because things have changed over the years. And as Dana said, through the years, the different experiences help us to contribute and continue to share the message. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brenda. And for the audience, this is, like I said, it's going to be very insights packed. So not so much inspirational stories, but really things you can use for today in your negotiation. So please bust out your pen, get your electronic notepad, whatever it is, but take notes. And again, all this stuff is also in the playbook should you decide to go that way as well. So anyhow, with that, we are going to cover a lot of ground today. We're really excited. So we'll cover both topics. Again, how to negotiate your salary, and then as well as how to ask for promotion. The other thing I'll say is all of us are currently in leadership roles in corporate today. So this stuff is extremely relevant. You are going to get what is relevant for today, right? So again, proven concepts, proven insights. So with that, let's get rolling. And Luz, I'll start with you. So again, background, as Latinos, we're taught to be grateful, right? Take what's given to you. And we're taught that from an early age. Talk to me about, should I negotiate my salary? Is that something I should be doing, or should I be grateful and just take the first one? Give me your perspective on that, Luz.
I feel like I got one of the easiest questions here, because the answer to that is pretty simple. Yes, 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 yes. Right. And I would say that it's not just at the time that a promotion comes up, but if you have a lateral move, right, and you're thinking about that, you're exploring different opportunities, even if it is, again, at the same level, you should always negotiate your salary. Now, it is important that, of course, you do your research and you are in tune with whatever the market is, essentially paying for that particular job, for whatever other level you want to get into, and just be well informed as you do it. that should never discourage you from negotiating, even when they tell you that there is a gap, because the conversation really is what's important to navigate through, and then to ensure that you're building confidence as time goes and how you can continue to enhance your own negotiation skills.
Gotcha. Thank you. Dana, anything to add to that?
I certainly agree with Luce. I think the thing to keep in mind is that if you are going to negotiate, you should have some things prepared in advance. So it's important that you know things like comparable salary ranges for roles that are similar. It's important you can speak to your own value and why you're asking for more. So while I would say yes, you should definitely go with negotiating your salary, just make sure that you've done your homework a little bit ahead of time.
Gotcha. Thanks, Dana. And Brenda, just to tap into Dana a little bit there, what are some of the ways you can do research and some of the things that, some of the elements you would need, as you start to prepare to negotiate your salary?
So I like that Luce mentioned lateral, because a lot of times when we hear lateral, it means there's no difference in what you're currently doing. And 9 times out of 10, that's not true. You're going into maybe it's the same level, but it's a different department. It's a different project. It's a different, program. And so there's always room for negotiation, especially within that first year, because now you've picked up what you needed to learn. Now your background and what you're bringing to the table is a little bit more. And so you can always bring that to the table and say, if I'm not getting an increase at the lateral move, then when can we revisit the conversation so that we can, consider some level of adjustment. And when you go into researching these opportunities, you look at what other companies are doing. There are a lot of salary engines out there that provide you with information on these titles. They're not always 100%, but you can find the similarities and the ranges that they're typically in. But really important with that lateral piece that Luce mentioned, that's a good time to say, you know what, 6 months from now, can we have this discussion again?
Gotcha. Those are great points. I like the engine you talked about, because even in my positions now, when I look at other roles, I definitely, I do my research. I go to salary.com or glassdoor.com and I start looking at least the ranges, right? I think they have base pay, they have, additional compensation or total compensation. They have some really cool metrics. So definitely, if you're looking at a job, at least things that have worked for me, I start looking at those ranges, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to start playing, within that mid range, especially if I want to be a little bit more aggressive. All right, thank you, Dana. I'm going to go back to you. Next question. What are I know you have a ton of experience, but what are some like the myths around salary negotiation that people should be aware of, and what are some of the other compensation levers that that we need to consider as we negotiate?
Yeah, so I can remember a time much earlier in my career. I was in a position where I didn't have a job. I was actively looking for and interviewing for jobs. My husband and I were in a position where I needed to work. I needed to bring in, some income. And I remember getting a job offer, and it was a job I really wanted. I really, really liked the role. I was really excited about it. And I remember thinking at the time, I thought about negotiating, but in my head, what kept me from negotiating was thinking that if I go back to this company and I try to negotiate, they're going to think that I don't actually really want the job. They're going to think, she's just trying to get more money or more whatever. And they're going to think that I don't really want it. And I think that's a really common myth, that we, by negotiating, signal to the company that we're not really excited for the role. And that is a big myth and far from the truth. And in fact, many companies expect you to negotiate. So they're going to give you an offer with the expectation that you may come back and ask for something slightly different. I think it's important to remember here the very definition of negotiation. And this is where both parties come out to an outcome that's acceptable for both. Okay, so it's not about always getting everything you want as the employee, and it's definitely not about the employer getting everything they want either. It's about coming to an agreement that works for both. And so if you're getting an offer and maybe you're not quite satisfied with the salary, and you've done your research, it's not quite in the range that you want it to be in. I certainly encourage you to go back and try to negotiate that salary. There may be some limitations from the employer side that they're not able to work with you from a salary standpoint. That's where you do want to look at other levers, like maybe there are some longer term benefits like stock options with the company. It could be negotiating your bonus percentage, for example. It could be negotiating even things like time off. So go into the conversation knowing that salary is not the only thing that you could negotiate with an offer.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And I just want to follow up, Dan, on a couple of things you said. I heard back for, I think I even seen a comment. How many times is it going back and forth? What's the standard, if there is a standard? And then the other question I had is, what's the timeline for negotiation? Is that like a week, 2 weeks, or average timeline? Tell me a little bit more about that before we get to Liz.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the company and the situation, but I think it is very standard when you receive the offer to say, thank you so much for this. I'm going to need some time to review it, and ask them, when is an acceptable time, for me to get back to you? This could be several days. They could offer you a week. But remember, the company is also trying to actively fill this role. There's a business need, right, that needs to be filled with this role. And so they're also thinking likely that they want to fill this role as soon as possible. So don't anticipate, weeks or even months of time to review and come back to counter offer, if you will. But it is very reasonable in the moment to ask for some time to review that offer before you say yes or come back with different requests. As far as the number of times you go back and forth, I would think about this too. So you really want to think about your why and what's driving you to ask for that, that adjustment in your offer. I think it's typical to go back and forth just a few times. If you're finding yourself going back and forth more than four times or so, I'd be thinking, why and what's driving that. But I'd love to hear from the rest too if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liz, I'm going to go to you with the same question, kind of, timeline back and forth, and as well as some of the myths that you want to share with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, as an HR professional who has done a lot of hiring, I would say more than twice generally would really just annoy me, right? Because a lot of it really depends on what you started with, right? You have to have your non-negotiable. What is the absolute minimum that you would even consider? And then from there, where is the maximum? And hopefully you're going to land somewhere in between, right? Because you don't want to be too low. You obviously, if you're too high, sometimes you max yourself out, right? And then a year, you're not going to be satisfied, because if you don't have any opportunities to go for another role, then there's just not a lot of room to grow. And many companies will not give you the maximum top of the range, because they want that for you, right? They want you to continue to expand your skill set, to be better at what you do. And so again, when it comes to ranges, they're probably just going to give you something that is somewhat in the middle. And so again, my personal advice is twice is more than enough, right? Because again, I'm assuming that you would have done your research, which is why you're asking to actually negotiate, that you're pretty in tune with what you're actually looking for, and that you know exactly what you want, right? Like someone going too much back and forth to me would indicate that they're just not even sure, and maybe they're just trying to game the system. Again, perceptions that unless I am in that conversation, I may not necessarily know exactly what they're looking for. And again, I would just want to pass on to the next person. But I applaud people who do try to negotiate, because to Dana's point, I want to see that. I want to see people try, which is actually what's going to take me to a myth that I've heard many times, which is when you're an internal employee, you cannot negotiate your offers. That's not true. Why shouldn't you negotiate your offer when you are being moved from one position to the next, right? And I've heard of even from compensation professionals to say, we don't want to make it a habit of our employees negotiating their offer. It's like, why not? We expect any external candidate to negotiate, so why wouldn't we do that with our own people, right? Because ultimately we want to retain our talent. And so that's one of probably the biggest hurdles that we have to jump through, especially in being a business partner, right? And making sure that we're advocating for the business and then also advocating for the employee. But it is making sure that no matter where you are in the organization, if you are, again, also internal or external, that, again, you know exactly what you need and again, what your bare minimum is and where you want to stack against, like even your own sort of peer group when you look at the job to ensure that you're getting what you want.
Gotcha. Thanks, Liz. And Liz, I want to ask one follow-up question based on one of the audience's comments, and hopefully I captured this right. Kind of goes into promotion, but if you go to a promotion and, what can you be a little bit more aggressive in your ask, knowing that it's a different band of pay, once you get that, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand the structure and breakout of the actual compensation plan, right? I mean, the thought, and I hope as you continue to progress in your own career and the levels are going up, that the compensation plan does vary. Sometimes it's just base, and then when you're promoted, they're adding some sort of variable, right? And so it's like, okay, well, does it come with a bonus? And what does the bonus look like? Are there any components, that any other benefits and perks, that essentially can be added with this particular promotion? So it's just asking all the right questions to ensure that you understand the full picture, right? So this is what we call total rewards. When you look at the holistic picture and view of the promotional opportunity, what does it entail, so that you know exactly what the things are that you might need to add, right, or negotiate on your package.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Brenda, I'm going to go to you, and I think we spoke about this before the call. So I'll ask you one question. We'll get to a myth. I think you talked about potentially negotiating yourself out of the range, or not, not waiting to get to the end to understand if you're within range or not. Talk to us a little bit more about that, and then follow that up with a myth.
Sure. And so this is mostly with interviews and candidates. When you begin your conversation around a potential new role with a company, that salary expectation, that salary discussion really should happen on day one, because you don't want to get to the final and then find out that they're not even in the range that you're wanting to be in, and vice versa. Like, they're thinking, well, she's way out of the ballpark. We can't afford this candidate. And so you don't want to get to the end of the interview process and waste your time and their time. And, it's just not a good experience for either party. So I know that when you have that first discussion about the role, that's when you ask, if you're on the HR side, what salary range are you looking for? And if you're the candidate, what salary range is this role paying? Because you don't want to waste any more time. And so that, for me, the myth leads into the myth that asking is frowned upon. And years ago, they would say at the interview, don't ask how much it pays, because they think that you're just interested in the money. Well, we're not working for free. We have to ask how much it's paying, because we want to be aligned. So I feel that's a big myth, that asking for the salary is frowned upon still. It really needs to take place in the beginning of the process, so that everybody's aligned and well informed. Now, that doesn't mean when you get to the end, if you if you want to ask for more, but keep in mind that you started out with a certain number at the beginning of the process. And then the same with internal movement. If you're interested in a role, you go see your HR business partner, your generalist, and you say, I'm interested in this role. Am I in the right salary band? Is this out of the question for me? And then you take it from there. And if they say, again, if it's a lateral, when can we revisit the discussion where I can get a merit increase,
Awesome.
or something that's based on increased performance.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Brenda. I really appreciate those insights. Dana, I'm going to go to you, and actually, one thing I want to follow up on, Brenda, I want to ask your opinion on before I talk about emotional intelligence. One is assuming, if you get through a salary negotiation, you kind of set the, here, I'm looking for 80,000 or whatever it is, and you get to the end, you get an offer. How do companies look at it if you change again and say, hey, well, I'm actually looking for more? Once you have the offer letter, you start negotiating like differently. But once you set the expectation up front, talk to us about how we should play that experience, Dana, and then, what the impact is to, the overall negotiation process.
Yeah. So I think even through the interview process, you are showing the company what sort of employee you're going to be. So this is even before you start on day one. You're showing some of the skills, the capabilities, the emotional intelligence you have in the interview process. And it's important to keep that in mind. So if you state up front, here's the salary range that I'm looking to be in, which is great. And I would recommend, that you be forthright. And as Brenda said, this is an important conversation to have early in the interview process. And then you get the offer and it is within the range that you have set, and it meets, if you've already talked through, other things that you'd want to see in the offer, and it meets all of your criteria. And then you come back and say, well, no, I want to negotiate now, and I want these other things that are above and beyond or different from what you stated. I would rethink that approach, because I think it can give the impression that maybe you didn't do your upfront homework, you didn't do your due diligence at the beginning, and they're willing to give you what you've asked for, and now you're rejecting it. I would rethink doing that. Now, if you've only talked about maybe a salary range, they've met your salary range, but there's, you haven't talked about things like a bonus, time off, et cetera, these other levers that you can pull. And maybe those other things are not, what you had hoped for. So, if you were at a company and you had, 3 weeks of vacation, and now you're moving to this new company and they're offering you 2, could you negotiate getting that 3rd week of vacation? I would say yes. But definitely rethink if you've already agreed to certain terms up front. I would hesitate in doing any renegotiation after that point.
All right, thanks, Dana. Appreciate that. Luz, I'm going to go to you with the next question here, just to keep things moving. I'm going to follow up on that range piece, because I know, for instance, I want to make, going into, I want to hit this dollar amount, and maybe I share like 80,000 or whatever it is. But Dana, you actually made me think about sharing a range. How important it is to share a range versus sharing a number?
So going back to the earlier point that I made, you want to be somewhat in between a specific range to ensure that you're getting exactly what you want. When you share a number, it limits your opportunity to actually get more, because you might cap yourself out, right, of the conversation. When the employer hears a very specific number in mind, it's going to be an easy decision for them to make. It's like, okay, it's within the range. We can offer them exactly that, and they're going to be happy. When you give them a range, it's going to ask them to really think about what's going to be essentially effective, one, for them to offer, and then 2, something that they understand you might be happy with. And then that's what gives you the ability to actually negotiate, right? Because if you say a flat number and say, this is exactly what I want, what are you negotiating beyond that, right? Because then you'd have to go back and then say, oh, I did further research, and upon that, and it's like, wait a minute, but you said X, right? So what's changed? So a range is always better from that lens.
Awesome, thank you. All right, to keep us moving here, Brenda, I'm going to go to you next. How important is emotional intelligence, during this process, and going in with the right mindset and the emotional kind of mindset as well? Walk us through the importance of that, because negotiation can be a really tough process, right? It's daunting, it's intimidating, but walk me through the importance of that and how we should think about operating in that space.
Sure. So I would refer to what Dana talked about when, during the interview process, the company and the hiring manager, they're looking at you as a potential employee. And for us in HR, we look for future talent always. So we're hiring you for this role, but in our minds, we're thinking, could this person lead this department? Could this person lead a department? Where could the future be for this person? And so emotional intelligence is a top-notch competence in leadership behavior. And if you show that you have it and you're aware of it, that's going to put you at the top of the list. Like, we're going to want to move you forward to speak to others. If you show a lack of emotional intelligence, that will also give us a lot to chew on and to come back and talk to the team about. And there are discussions, there are debriefing sessions that talk about, what about the future? Do you think this person could do X? And so you will really be doing yourself a disservice not demonstrating that you have emotional intelligence. And a lot of that is understanding how your reaction and how your personality is affecting the others and the process and the conversations. A lot of times people get it mixed up, what emotional intelligence really is, but it really is being aware of how you impact others on your reactions. And so if there's a question that you're not comfortable with, you really have to practice and know how you're going to respond to it. And always keep in mind that we are looking for future leaders. And so it will be really key to understand how to manage your EQ.
Thank you, Brenda. Those are great tips. Just personally speaking, mentors and sponsors, especially, both of them, especially mentors, especially at senior levels, at least what I do is anytime I make a key decision for my career or my business, whatever, if I have to make a big decision, I leverage my network, my trusted advisors. So for instance, if I'm going to go for a new job, I actually, not all the way at the end, but I start talking to them, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What are you seeing pros and cons as I negotiate? What are some of your thoughts, things to consider? Bottom line is I go into it very informed. I have different perspectives. So I put my best foot forward. And the other thing, as especially as I talk to higher level, executives, as I get perspectives, it doesn't have to be about this topic. It could be any business topic, but they always lead with going with high emotional intelligence. Just be aware. That's the first thing they say, right? And so right away I get my mindset right. And so just kind of, context. And I have a chapter on mentors and sponsors, but use them as you make any big decisions, career or other, because that will show you're a good decision maker. You're looking at all perspectives, and hopefully ones that are going to be impactful for your career and your business. Okay, so with that, I'm going to keep us moving. Dana, I'm going to go to you because we do have to get to the other topic, and we can go a little bit past the hour, by the way, too. We have some flexibility, so I just want to set the expectation. Dana, if you do all these things we said we're going to do, right? You do your research, you're giving ranges, you have the right emotional intelligence, you're well informed and you're confident, and you don't get the what you're looking for. How do you gracefully approach that situation, and how do you deal? I should say deal, but how do you manage that situation gracefully and making sure that you're in a good spot afterward?
Yeah, again, this is about showing, what kind of employee you are and how you're going to handle difficult conversations, because guaranteed in your role at some point as an employee, you're going to have a difficult conversation and get news that you weren't hoping for. So I think in the moment, it's really important to manage your disappointment, um, and use this as an opportunity to understand why. So it may be that the company has very firm, policies, rules around a salary range, or around, how or when a salary negotiation can take place. Because some companies will only do salary changes, at a certain time in the year. There are some policies that are set like that. And so understand that if an employer makes an exception for one person, then more than likely they're going to have to make that exception for everyone. So there are going to be times when the employer comes back and says, we're sorry, we can't negotiate with you at this time, or we can't give you exactly what you want. And so understanding the why and taking it as an opportunity to learn more about the processes that the company has in place. Maybe it was a specific, number of years of experience or capabilities that they were expecting to have for a different salary range, for example. But take this as an opportunity to learn more about what's keeping you from getting exactly what you were asking for in that negotiation.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Lou, same question to you.
Yeah, what I'll add is you have to ensure that you also ask, if not now, when, right? Because many times it just could be circumstantial, right? Where in the moment, because of maybe company financial performance, right, it can't be done. Maybe there's some restrictions that are getting in the way of, any functional unit, for example, having budget to, essentially give more than what they can afford at that point in time. So it's really important that you walk out of that conversation understanding, well, what would a timeline look like, right, for us to get back to this conversation? Because you want to continue to stress that with your current compensation, there's still some sort of dissatisfaction that needs to be addressed, right? It may not have to be addressed in the moment. And honestly, a lot of it really ultimately will depend on you and how important it is for you in that particular time, right? I'm not saying that you say, well, you know what, if you don't do this, then I'm out, right? Because that shouldn't ever be the approach, but it's really more articulating why it is important to you. And then again, understanding, I get that at this point in time, it isn't possible, but is this something that we can get back to in maybe 4 months, right? 5 months, 6 months, whatever that might mean for you.
Gotcha. Thank you. It was great insights by Luz and Dana on that one. And Brenda, to cap this section off, I got one more question, and I do want to get to how to ask for promotion next. Talk to us about, and I'm giving you some high levels here, but talk to us. I saw a couple of questions. What is a bonus, and how do bonus structures work? And we have some younger, like college level folks on the call. So just to give a quick overview of that to get the ball rolling for their understanding.
Sure. So many companies have, as part of the employment opportunity, a bonus structure, and for the most part, where I am, they're paid at the end of the year, and it's a certain percentage of your salary. We strongly encourage having discussions around goals at the beginning of the year that are focused and centered around your bonus at the end of the year, so that if you want to, so this is, yes, you get paid, you get your salary for doing your job, and these are the things that come into play that you do above and beyond, that at the end of the year come in the form of your bonus. And then, yes, depending on your role, your title, the bonus structure changes somewhat, but basically that's what it is. It's a bonus to what you do above and beyond your day to day, and how you bring more to the business. And again, if you're depending on what you do and what your role is. So the bonus at times can be negotiated, but again, it depends on the role, how much you can negotiate as far as the bonus. Um, but it's really key to tie that into those conversations at the beginning of the year.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda.
If I
And
could,
actually, go ahead, Liz.
sorry to add, and I know we have to move on to the other subject. Depending on the industry, it can look and vary across the board, right? So one is, to Brenda's point, the overachievement on performance, and then the other one is tied very specifically to metrics that you have to hit to perform, right? So, and some can be monthly, some can be quarterly. I know in the world of tech, they drastically vary, right? Because we are in sales, and so sales coworkers are motivated by essentially the compensation that they receive. And so it can really vary. Again, it could be monthly, quarterly, annual, and then it can be performance based. It can be metrics based. It could be recognition. It could be ad hoc, where you're just getting it because you're being recognized for a project well done. But when it comes to just your compensation, again, it depends on how the role itself is structured.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. All right. So let's move on to the next topic. And that was some great stuff. And again, a lot of stuff is in the Latino Leadership Playbook, available on Amazon. So please pick it up, or feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn as well. We'll definitely support you that way. And looking forward to also connecting with everybody here. All right. How to ask for promotion. And again, we will go past the hour if needed here. I think we have 20 more minutes to the top. But again, I want to make sure we cover this topic. We're all here. We might as well take advantage of this time. How to ask for promotion. Very daunting, intimidating. When do I do it? How do I do it? Who do I do it with? All those questions, right? Or do I even ask for promotion? So it's those types of things. And so to get things started, Dana, I'm going to go to you. When's the best time to ask for promotion? How do you know you're ready for one?
Yeah, so I think it's important to distinguish here between a promotion and just a raise, because many times if you're asking for a promotion, it means that your scope of work has changed. You have more responsibilities. Maybe your team size has grown, or if those things have not happened yet, you're saying that I'm ready for those types of things. So when I think of a promotion, I think this is the next level up from where I am today. And with leveling up in the organization just comes more responsibility. So it's important to know, if you're thinking about asking for a promotion, I'd be thinking about, what are those things? Is it, you were at, part of a project team, but now you're leading that project. You had 2 direct reports and now you have a team of 10. There are a number of different things that could signal to you that you're ready for the next level. But before you go into asking for the promotion, I'd be thinking about and identifying what are those things that show I've either already taken on these additional things or that I'm ready to take on these additional things.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Luz, I'm going to go to you. Same question, but I also want you to build in, as you ask for promotion or go for jobs that are a level up, do you have to meet all the requirements?
Sure. So there, at least, my experience has been, there's really 2 types of promotional opportunities. One is in place where, again, you feel like you're ready because, to Dana's point, you've mastered, essentially a lot of the things that you're already doing, and you feel like what you're doing probably already goes above and beyond the job's expectations, and it really should be at a different level. Or there's also a competitive promotion, right, where an opportunity has opened up that it's actually greater than the level where you're currently at, and you want to be considered for that. Or you might be invited to participate in the competitive process because you might have other individuals that may be considered ready, essentially for that next step. And so, I'm going to try not to belabor a lot of the points that Dana, already shared, but it is also understanding that you have elevated the job itself, right? Because it isn't only about you when the company looks at it from different perspectives. Do we have a need that we need to fill, right? And this is why this job actually needs to be elevated. And then, of course, the personal readiness is going to be a key component, to whether or not you're promoted when, again, it's in place. Have you identified the needs to oversee a team? Have you yourself developed, for example, if you're going into a leadership role and you are an individual contributor, have you mastered some of the leadership capabilities that you need? Or have you identified how to continue to get them? Because you don't have to have a mastery of those things. You can learn as you go, but you do have to show the maturity and agility to learn, right? So going back to your question around, do I have to meet all the qualifications? Absolutely not. Sometimes it's even impossible, right? Because someone has to give you the chance for you to gain the experience that you need to essentially even fulfill that very specific requirements. It is a big difference between male and female. And honestly, my husband and I always had this debate, right? Because early in my career, I would be like, I can't, I don't, I may have 9 out of 10, right? And he's like, loose. Like I may have 5 and I still apply for the job, right? It's a mentality shift and understanding that you do have the agility and the ability to learn, right? You can absolutely do the job. You just have to put your mind to it, right? And you have to articulate how you're going to accomplish those things when you're in the interview, assuming of course that you get it. Yes, we have so many tools and platforms, that sometimes just automatically can disqualify you from the job. So it is a matter of looking at the posting, making sure that you're fitting in a lot of these qualities into your resume so that they're not, again, automatically disqualifying you. But when we go back to, again, just looking at the promotional opportunity, especially when it is competitive, hopefully you do have a group of advocates, right, that can articulate how you have gained some experiences around these areas, can give you guidance on how to, again, articulate a lot of these points. But I've always said, like, the worst answer you're ever going to get is a no, right? Like nothing beyond that. And so you always ought to give yourself an opportunity to go for the opportunity that you want. But you have to be very in tune with who you are, your readiness level, your self-awareness, and of course, your professional maturity.
Awesome. Thank you, Luz. Great insights. I love everything you just covered, especially on the maturity side. Brenda, going to you and just to follow up, to get more tactical, walk us through, just say, hey, I have a situation, I want to go for this higher level position. Walk us through the steps that we should start considering as you get ready for promotion. Again, the why, the who, the what's, and timing and all that. Just walk us through a scenario.
Sure. So just to echo real quick what Luz was referring to, we have to look at the potential that we have when we don't have the experience. And we always think work environment, the experience we have in the work environment. You may not have ever managed a team, but you're managing a family at home and you're dealing with different personalities and conflicting opinions and debates all of the time. And even if you're volunteering somewhere outside of the workplace, you have to look at those experiences because they offer you transferable skill sets and transferable competencies. So no, you don't have to check off all 10 requirements, but show them that you have the potential to take on what's left. And so as far as, going for the promotion, it's when you're ready to present yourself in that manner, collect all of your performance reviews if you have them. If you don't have them, you should keep a list of your achievements, the projects you're working on, who you're working with on those projects, especially when they're cross-functional and they require collaboration. You collect your performance reviews, you solicit feedback from the individuals that you work with, and you put this really pretty package together with a bow, and you go in to see your manager and you say, here's what I'm interested in doing. This position is available. I'd like to apply. Here's all the information you need to make this decision. And that is twofold. It helps you build your confidence because I feel like 9 times out of 10, you don't even realize how much you've done until you sit down and really look through everything you've done and how great you've done them. And then, so it really builds up your confidence. And then secondly, you really don't give the hiring manager, your supervisor, any reason to hesitate, because now you've given them everything that they need to make that decision. And if the decision is not in your favor, then tell me what else I need to add to this, so that in 6 months we can have this conversation again, or so that the next time the opportunity is up, I can be considered. A lot of times when I have internal individuals who come and apply for a role that they're not qualified for, I don't just sit there and say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. I'll say, this is not the right opportunity for you right now, but let's talk about how we can get you there. So if the person on the other side is not offering you that conversation, then you ask them, if this is not the opportunity for me, what should I be working on so that the next one is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brenda. When I think you and Luz were talking about capabilities, and if you are short on capabilities, I mean, that's a perfect reason why you should get involved with leadership position within the ERG. It gives you a safe space to develop those capabilities. For instance, I lead a global ERG, so I'm able to work on my people skills, my people management and my strategy. But even within any ERG, if you select a role on, whichever role it is, by the leadership level, you can play with these things and develop these capabilities. In addition, you can build your network of senior leaders across the organization because you have that access, and you can work with them on developing those capabilities. And to be honest, you can create advocates and champions for you in your career. And maybe even sometimes, as you try to go for these positions, you might have somebody in your corner giving a note to the hiring manager. So use ERGs to develop yourself as well. So I had to give a shout out for that. Dana, I'm going to go to you on this one. I want to follow up a little bit on differentiating yourself. And specifically, I think I saw a comment about being bilingual and, and also had a question about tying your potential to the future of the business, and how do you tie your value to the business going forward? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I love the things that Brenda was recommending, because I do think it's so critical to keep track of the projects that you've been a part of or led, the outcomes and the results and the impact that those projects had. Whenever you can, try to quantify things. So, think about, if you can quantify impact from a dollars perspective, from a percentage perspective, what was the team size you were on? Those are really strong ways to help you sort of build your case and differentiate yourself. Certainly any skills or capabilities that you have, definitely keep track of those too. You mentioned, being bilingual. This is a skill that not everyone has, particularly in the US. And so if you can market that skill and talk about the impact that skill has and what you are able to do, the regions you could potentially be working in or for that others may not be able to because of these skills, this is really going to help differentiate you. From a potential perspective, as Brenda had mentioned, companies are, if they have really sound talent practices, they're thinking about their talent pipeline, their leadership pipeline all the time. And how can they invest in and build their future leaders within the organization? And so from that perspective, you do really want to emphasize your learning agility, for example. So if you don't meet all 10 criteria, no problem. Talk about a time when you had to figure something out on your own. Talk about a situation you walked into, you didn't have all the information, but you figured out a way to get it, and you figured out a way to be successful. And this is something that could really differentiate you when you're going in for those discussions.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. Appreciate that answer. Luz, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I would say, specifically to the bilingual part, and some of these skill sets, I think it's also important to understand how it's actually being utilized in the job, right? Because if it isn't, then you may not have a strong point to address, right? Like being bilingual doesn't automatically, as an example, entitle more someone to more compensation. However, if it is being used, then you can ask for a premium, because many places have premiums on bilingual talent. And it is honestly that simple of a question. Is there a premium for the bilingual part of this role, right? And then from there, again, negotiating what that could be like. I have friends that literally will not translate anything until they are told that they can get better compensation. And again, you can really establish your non-negotiables yourself, right? Like, if you want me to do that, I can. However, it will cost more, right? So I'm just looking to understand from you what that might be in this company. So just, again, have a very strong stance on, like, again, the value that that places on that particular job, and how you're going to be using it, and why that is continuing to be beneficial for the company. I would say, as Latinos and Latinas in general, there are two areas that we always get like dinked on, right? For promotions and anything else, not having enough business acumen. So, obviously that's a way to really differentiate yourself, and really truly understanding the business and the group that you support, getting very in tune with, the priorities, the vision, the mission, again, really understanding the company. And then the other one is the strategic thinking, right? And for many of us, it's like, well, what does that even mean? But trust me when I tell you, I've been a part of so many conversations around Latino talent and just talent review across the board. And those are the two areas where it's always like, oh, we can promote them because they don't have that, right? So as a fellow Latina, if there's any way to, I would say, spend really a lot of time on making sure that you have that, because it can be a barrier, is, again, business acumen and strategic thinking.
Those are phenomenal, Liz. And yeah, I hear those things all the time. And again, you can practice those things and work with mentors, sponsors, ERGs to develop that. And just to learn what it is before you even develop it, really, get into the details of that. So thank you. All right. I am going to go to Brenda next, and to wrap us up with the last question. Again, you assuming you did all your homework and you got your capabilities, you packaged it nicely, you're going for these positions where you don't meet the entire thing, but you have learning agility, and you've proven that, and you still don't get the role for whatever reason. How do you come to that discussion, that tough conversation, and how do you move forward from there? And what are some of the lessons learned that you should be looking for as you go through the process?
Sure. I would ask for full transparency and a clear path forward. Why isn't this an opportunity for me at this time? What is it that I am missing? And I would transfer that conversation into a career development plan, where I would get my manager involved. Oftentimes you can find a sponsor or a mentor in the company or outside of the company, where you can have that discussion and say, I need to develop in these areas in the next couple of months. Can you help me? And, if they see you as a talent, investing in some type of development coaching for you, but really asking for transparency. And again, this is where the emotional intelligence kicks in, right? Because then if you're going to ask for it, you have to be ready to hear it and have a discussion about it, a two-way discussion about it, and have accountability for what that you can control. So, there could be very many reasons why. It could be the business. It could be we don't have the budget for a headcount right now. And if that is the reason, then start partnering and collaborating across the functions, and start doing the work, so that when the budget does hit and you get a headcount, then they're like, what, Brenda was already working on this, and we can just slide it right in. So, you have to be very strategic about it when you think about if this is the opportunity that you really want, and that it's the one for you, and it's just a matter of time. It's not really something that's wrong with your skill set. But if it is, then have a very transparent conversation and ask for the feedback that's needed, so that you can work towards achieving those goals, and have that discussion later on, in the year, or 6 months later, but walk away with a plan.
Love it. Walk away with a plan. That's a great way of putting it. Thank you. Dana, same question to you, but I also want to add, and I see a great comment where, you took, someone higher than you left, you took on their responsibilities, and all of a sudden you're doing that person's job who left the company, but you're not getting promoted, in that situation. Even if you want to lead with that's fine too. But I think I hear this one so often where I take on all these responsibilities, but I'm not getting promoted, and they remove that job. Talk to us a little bit about how, some of the options to work through that situation.
Yeah, and those types of situations definitely happen. So in many cases, I think, the work of your manager, for example, still has to get done. And so they're looking for, different ways for the work to get done. And hopefully it's for a, temporary period of time. And it's, not an extended period of time. But say, for example, you're in that situation, you've done the work, that your manager had been doing, and you're going to ask for that role. Even if you've been doing the work, I would say do your due diligence, do your homework, take time to build your case about why you would be a good fit for that role. It's not enough to go in and just say, hey, I've been doing everything that they've been doing. Chances are, perhaps they had a different skill set than what you possess today. Perhaps they simply had more experience leading teams than you do today. There are always things that aren't readily visible to us, that maybe our manager was doing, or had different experiences that gave them that role. So don't go in with the assumption that just because you've been handling some of their work, that you should automatically get that role. Still do your homework and do your due diligence of why you would be a good fit. If you go into the discussion and you ask for that role, you ask for that promotion, and the response is no, again, manage your disappointment. But I think that's an opportunity to ask for, so can we talk about different ways then that this work that I've been managing could get moved to other parts of the team? I'm happy to step in for, this period of time, but maybe this time has gone on maybe a little too long. And so I would have a discussion at that point to ask about a different path forward for managing the work or making up for it with you handling that work.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate that response. And those are great options that people can take advantage of. So thank you. Luz, I'm actually going to initiate another question I just thought of. I think it's a very powerful question as far as some of the things I've heard. And even I think my brother spoke about it in the playbook. Talk to me, and I hear this a lot, talk to me about the situation and how to manage it where, hey, I've been in this position, I don't know, 5-7 years, and I want to go for the next level. I've been doing my job, and I'm like, I feel like I'm a natural fit for this level. But you see somebody else from the organization come in and get that, even though they're not in the group that you've been in for that 5 to 7 years, but they still get that role over you, and you feel like you've deserved it. Walk us through kind of the mindset, what maybe management might be thinking as far as, why they selected that person over you in that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, and honestly, it really ties with one of my messages that I was going to leave with this team in some cases, or with this group. But before I get to the answer, here's what I can say. We often hear people leave leaders, not companies. I do think people also leave companies who do not provide advancement opportunities, right? And ultimately, if you are ready and you know that you are, and your advocates are also validating that for you, and your leader validates that for you, and you get nothing in return, it's time to go, right? Don't get stuck at an organization that will not provide you with the growth opportunity that you need and that you have earned, right? So putting that aside, when there are instances in which someone else gets the opportunity that you feel you're passed on, and I think a lot of the things that have been said today are applicable. You have to have enough self-awareness to understand where you stand in the organization. You have to do your own self-assessment to understand that what was needed for that role may or may not have been exactly what they were essentially looking for. And the only way that you can do that is by getting feedback from the hiring manager, right? Sometimes even the talent acquisition specialist. It could be even peers, right? It could be, again, your own leader, beyond the hiring manager, because sometimes, it's not the same person. But the feedback is so key, right? To just, again, understanding what happened through the process, right? Or why you weren't considered. Did you even ask to be considered, right? Like, that's one key question that, like, many people think, oh, like, I've been here long enough, I'm just going to be tapped on the shoulder. That honestly almost never happens. I have had 5 rotations at my current company in 12 years. And all of that was because I asked for it. My latest opportunity, I was tapped on the shoulder, but like, at that point in time, it was like the leader knew me so well that it was a role essentially created for me, right? But that, again, I am cognizant that does not happen often. And so, did you ask to be considered? And if you didn't ask, why did you feel, essentially people would just maybe even consider you for the role? Have you been visible enough so that, to understand whether or not those hiring leaders even knew about your work product, knew about you? And again, you have a board of advisors, and I am very passionate about this. I have different boards that I leverage at different points in my career, and even in my personal life, like people that are going to be there to cheer you on, people that will speak about you when you're not in the room, someone who's mentoring you along the way. Like, these are key, important people in your professional life that you'll need to also get you to that next level at times, right? Because you're going to always need different perspectives. You can't just go by how you feel, right? And again, ultimately, did you have a conversation around career growth and opportunities even early in your career? Some people don't even talk about that, right? Like, they just assume, again, I'm going to work hard and then, and then it's magically going to happen, right? And I'm never going to have an opportunity, and I'm never going to talk about, like, what I might want to do in the future. And so career conversations are always going to be key to your success and to your growth. No one will ever guess essentially what you really want. Your leader won't guess. If someone does tap you on the shoulder, they're just doing you a favor, right? But ultimately, it's really on you to take key action to ensure, again, that people are aware you're interested, and to remember your work product. Obviously, performance has to play a key factor into what you do. But just, again, ensuring that you even have the visibility, right, that's also needed for a specific job.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Those are all great insights. All right. I know we're a little bit over time here. I do want to spend the next few minutes wrapping up. So Brenda, I'll go to you and then to all the panelists, final words of wisdom that you have to share with our audience today. And Brenda, I'll open it with you.
I want to say confidence comes to mind when I think about just overall salary, career, promotion, success and development come to mind. A lot of it comes from within. And so if you're bilingual and they're not offering more money for bilingual, then you put it on your resume. You pay 50 to get me, you have to pay 55. So don't wait for the other person to give you the opportunity. Career development conversations. If your manager is not having them with you, you have them with your manager. You get on their calendar and say, I want to talk about career development for me. It doesn't have to be because you didn't get a promotion or you didn't get an opportunity that you were looking for. It could just be, it's the beginning of the year and I want to grow this year. I want to have this conversation with you. Some companies don't have performance reviews or goal setting processes in place. That's okay. You can pick up the phone. You can get on your manager's calendar and talk about your goals for the year. What is my plan? Let's talk about a path forward. So we always wait to be picked on. I didn't say because they didn't ask me. Don't wait. Raise your hand, speak up. Reach out to your manager, tell them what you're looking for. And like Lou said, you'll know when it's time to go. But when you're ready to do it, you'll have an arsenal of experience to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brenda. That's great stuff. Thank you very much. Dana, same question to you. What last words of wisdom?
Yeah, Brenda, I love that idea to own your own career, to own your development, to own these decisions. I think that's so important. I think the other piece I would say is prepare. So, when you're thinking about, negotiating your salary, asking for a promotion, do your homework, prepare for the conversation, practice that conversation with a mentor or a trusted partner. Don't let the first time you have that conversation or make that pitch be the actual moment that you're making these asks. So I do encourage you to prepare, leverage your networks, leverage your partners so that you can show up as your best self in these really, really critical moments.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. I love that. Especially to use in a mentor, your trusted network, those things just invaluable. And Luz, I'll wrap it up with you before I give final thoughts. Last words of wisdom.
Yeah. So I'm going to quote something that I actually wrote in the book. Do not indulge in self-doubt, especially when everyone agrees you're ready for a promotion. Self-doubt can really overcome our own ability to continue to move forward with whatever our career might desire, right? So if you know you're ready and you know that and others feel you're ready, again, I will always say it, the worst answer you'll get is a no. And when you're told no, ask, if not now, when?
Love it. Love it. If not now, when? Thank you all. As I wrap up here, a lot of what we talked about is arming yourself and knowing your brand, as I call it, and all these capabilities you have. Keep in mind, if you don't have these things, there's ways to develop yourself. And one of them is literally in the Latino Leadership Playbook. I know we talked about 2 chapters today, but we cover things like how to advocate for yourself, how to use your culture as a superpower, how to be a strong communicator, collaborator, executive presence. All these powerful tools are all in the book. And so take advantage of that. Go deep on a chapter, play with it, talk to your mentors, sponsors, talk to your peers, but play with this stuff, because the more you arm yourself, the more you practice, as Lou said, and the more you master these things, that's how your career gets accelerated. So take advantage of the tools that we have for you and that we're putting in front of you. Ladies, thank you again. This was a great event for Women's History Month, a very important event.
Okay.
I see this talk being on the internet for years, and everybody, in my opinion, every Latino, Latina, and everybody else should take your insights and run with them and drive their career. So thank you again. Thank you to the audience. I know we didn't get to every question and every comment, but thank you. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. Please, if you can, get your playbook. Ping me if any questions. I'm more than happy to help, or any of us, right? You have some expertise here. You have some real big firepower and some really powerhouse females here to help, again, hopefully drive and accelerate your career. So with that, thank you, everybody. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.